What have you heard about witches in the Wild West? What do you really know about the healers, the whisperers, the women who walk the prairie alone? Those who could stop the bleeding and break a fever when everyone else just started digging graves. What about the woman the whole town feared, the one who vanished with her children? They say she poisoned her husband. They say her cabin glowed at night, even when the windows were shut. They say she walked into the desert and came back, not quite the same. And then, silence. No one ever saw her again. Not her. Not the kids. Her tracks ended near Red Canyon. And ever since, the wind there has howled a little differently. But hers wasn't the only story like that. The West was full of strange things. People disappearing in the sands of Arizona. Wagons that never made it to their last stop. Ranches where folks feared the shadows more than any outlaw. These wild lands were never about truth or lies. Out here, things were decided by grit, dust, and whispers. Some say it's all just a tale. Others swear they saw her. And a few still leave a small stone by the canyon's edge, just in case the spirits are still listening. The grave was fresh. A shallow scar in hard prairie soil, marked with a crooked wooden cross and a boot-scuffed name carved too fast. Clara stood at the edge of the service, hands cold, eyes dry. She had worn black, though no one asked her to. Not for his sake, but for hers, to vanish in plain sight. The children stood behind her, small, still, silent. Too young to understand grief, old enough to feel the shift in air. They came in silence. The family. His brother, Ben, eyes sharp, mouth tighter than his collar. His Aunt Mary, all whispers and scripture, muttering words like wickedness and unnatural silence. Even the preacher looked nervous when he spoke over the grave. His prayer was short. His eyes never met hers. She never screamed when he died. She always kept things behind the house, in jars. She never let us in the kitchen. She never cried. No one said it directly. But it hung in the wind. Which? They didn't believe in mercy. They believed in rot, and order, and keeping danger outside the walls. And Clara, she wasn't one of them. Not truly. Not since the moment she arrived. A city girl. Too quiet. Too smart. And now, conveniently widowed. By sundown, the decision was made. She was to leave. The house would stay. The children would stay. She would go. Alone. Ben made sure to say it in front of the children. So they'd understand she wasn't wanted. So they'd think it was her fault. That night, she waited until the fire died low in the hearth. Until the boots had stopped pacing overhead. Until only the wind spoke, soft against the shutters. The children slept in the loft. Ellie curled like a kitten beneath the old quilt, thumb tucked in her mouth. Sam lay awake. Eyes open. Listening. He always listened. Clara moved without shoes. Without sound. She took only what mattered. A canvas satchel from beneath the floorboard. Inside, dried herbs, a tin of honey salve, a bone needle, a twist of linen. The things they feared. The things that saved lives. She wrapped her daughter in a shawl. Tugged her son gently by the arm. He didn't speak. Just nodded. They passed through the back door like shadows. No lantern. No farewell. No time to mourn what wasn't theirs anymore. The earth was cold beneath their feet. The grass wet with dew. And somewhere behind them, a house full of fire and judgment still breathed. She didn't look back. By the time the crows started calling, the house would be awake. By then, she would be far from it. By then, she would be nothing but a rumor. Carried on prairie wind. The prairie stretched endless and quiet, a sea of dead grass whispering beneath their feet. With every step, the sky faded from ink to smoke. It wasn't dawn yet, but the dark had started to lift, just enough to see your own breath hanging in the cold. Clara walked fast. Not too fast for the children, but fast enough that the frost cracked under their steps. Her arms ached from carrying Ellie, who had woken once to mumble a question and then drifted back into sleep. Sam trotted behind, lips pressed tight, dragging his feet only when the wind bit too hard. No one followed. Not yet. But every gust of wind, every creak in the grass sounded like boots on soil. Like breath behind her. They had no map. No destination. Only distance. The first hour passed in silence. Then Ellie stirred again, whispering, "Are we there yet?" Sam looked at his mother. She didn't answer. Just reached back, touched his arm, and kept walking. Soon the sun began to rise, not golden but pale and tired. The kind of light that didn't warm anything. Sam's shoes were too thin. His toes had gone quiet. Clara could hear it in the way he stumbled. By midday, the prairie began to change. Fewer trees. More stone. A rough incline to the west. And then, there it was. An old chapel. Crumbling, roof half collapsed, door leaning sideways. It stood crooked on a rise of ground, as if trying to disappear into the land around it. Clara didn't ask questions. She just led them inside. It was empty. Dry. And silent. Dust coated every surface. Cracked pews slumped against the wall. The altar had long since fallen, but the stone floor beneath it was still whole. Enough space to rest. Enough roof to block the wind. She laid Ellie down first. The girl shivered, then curled into herself like she had at home. Sam sat beside her, rubbing his hands together, eyes darting. "What is this place?" he asked. "Safe," Clara answered. And for now, that was true. She closed the door as best she could, then reached into the satchel. Bread. Just enough for the children. She handed them each a piece. Ate nothing herself. Her body was awake, buzzing with cold and fear and calculation. She checked the wound on her foot, torn skin, blood clotted to her heel. Wrapped it tight. Didn't wince. Night came fast. And with it, something else. A sound. Low. Far off at first. Then closer. Not wind. Not coyote. A growl. Then another. Sam stood. "Is it wolves?" he asked. Clara didn't answer. Ellie began to cry. Clara pulled her close. Reached for the boy. Pressed them both behind a broken pew. Covered them with her coat. Another sound. Heavy steps. Not hooves. Not boots. A shadow at the broken door. Clara held her breath. And then, chaos. A blur. A shout. A shape in the dark. Arrows. Something falling. And just like that, the door slammed open, and a man fell through it. He hit the stone hard. Rolled. Groaned. Blood smeared across his side. Bare chest. Wounded. Breathing. Then still. Sam whispered, "Is he?" Clara moved. Not toward the door. Not away. Toward the man. Because something in her bones, deep, old, told her. They weren't done running yet. And this man, this stranger, might be the only reason they were still alive. He was bleeding fast. Clara didn't speak. There was no one to speak to. Sam crouched beside his sister, eyes wide and unblinking, while Ellie buried her face into his coat. The chapel, once still, now pulsed with breath and blood. The man's side was torn. The arrow had gone deep, the shaft broken and burnt at the edge. Clara had seen wounds like this before, on cattle, on soldiers, on men too proud to sit still. This one didn't look proud now. Just heavy. And dying. She knelt beside him, steady as stone. Her fingers found the satchel. Quick! Trained! She pulled out crushed willow bark, a strip of linen, a twist of gold-threaded moss she hadn't used in over a year. Her hands moved without hesitation. The way her mother once taught her, when blood is pouring, don't freeze. Stop it first. Ask questions later. Sam moved closer, watching everything. Is he gonna die? He asked. Clara didn't answer. She bit the thread with her teeth and tied it tight around the base of the wound. Blood soaked through in seconds. She added pressure. Pressed the moss. Poured the water, not clean, but it would have to do. Then Sam's voice again. Lower this time. Will you do the same to him as you did to our father? She stopped. Just for a second. Her eyes flicked to him. He didn't flinch. Just stood there, trembling but steady. He hadn't asked to understand. But he did. No, she said. I didn't do that to him. Outside, the wolves were gone. But the cold wasn't. She wrapped the man in an old blanket from the chapel floor. Wiped her hands on her skirt. Her heart still beat too loud. But her face didn't show it. Ellie peeked out. Is he a bad man? Clara looked at the wound. The bow. The necklace made of carved bone. No, she said quietly. He's just a man who got there before the wolves did. They slept in shifts that night. Sam refused to close his eyes until his mother promised twice she'd wake him if anything changed. Ellie clung to Clara's waist and whimpered until her breath slowed. Clara sat beside the man until morning. The air was thinner that morning. Still, but sharp, like everything was holding its breath. Sunlight broke through the chapel wall in narrow golden slits, landing across the stone floor, the boy's curled hand, the girl's tangled hair. Clara was already awake. She hadn't moved since midnight. One arm around Ellie. Her back leaned against the rough wood. Her eyes on the man sleeping just feet away. The bandage on his side had darkened. But he breathed. Slower now. Less like a drowning man, more like someone drifting toward shore. He wasn't dead. That mattered. He stirred just before sunrise. Opened his eyes, blinked at the light, then met hers. No surprise. No threat. Just recognition, like she was something he'd expected. He spoke again. One word. Takaho. She didn't ask what it meant. Not yet. Sam sat nearby, hugging his knees, stick still close. He'd watched her all night too. He looked tired, older than before. The girl woke with a soft whimper and reached for her mother's braid. Clara whispered, "It's morning," and kissed her forehead. They didn't talk much after that. The man tried to sit up. Winced. Failed. Clara brought him water. Helped him back. He didn't speak again. Later, she cleaned the wound. Removed the bandage. The gash beneath was ugly, red, raw, but not rotting. Not yet. She crushed leaves between stones. Pressed them into the gauze. Her hands didn't shake. But inside, she was still listening to the fear. Ellie picked small dry flowers from the chapel floor and brought them to the stranger. He took one. Tucked it into the edge of his blanket. Sam didn't move. But he didn't stop watching. By midday, Clara checked the path outside. The chapel sat low in a fold of the land, invisible from the main trail. But someone had walked nearby recently. A boot print. Slightly sunken. Not from her. Not from him. Just one. She said nothing. But when she came back inside, she bolted the door with a beam from the broken pew. The man noticed. Their eyes met. He nodded once. There were no words, but the message was clear. They weren't alone out here. Ben Van Deren didn't trust silence. especially not after a funeral. The house was too quiet now. No footsteps. No crying upstairs. Just the ticking of the hall clock and the creak of boards that hadn't been walked on in days. He climbed the stairs slowly. His boots thudded against wood still soaked from last night's storm. Empty. The children's beds had been slept in, but not for long. The quilt was still warm. The girls' shoes were missing. The boy's coat was gone. He stood in the middle of the loft and exhaled through his nose. Not surprise. Just confirmation. She took them, he said aloud. No one answered. Downstairs, Mary waited by the fireplace, arms folded like she was keeping something inside from leaking out. She waited, Ben muttered. Waited till we buried him, then ran. Mary didn't flinch. She's not right, she whispered. Wasn't ever. Too still. Too clever. That garden. The smoke. The books. She's a thief, Ben spat. And a liar. He didn't say what he really thought, that his brother had died too suddenly. That maybe the cup she handed him that night hadn't been just tea. She'll go east, he said. Follow the creek. Try to hide where the brush gets thick. He packed light, rope, rifle, water, jerky. He wasn't going to talk to her. Just take the children back. Let the circuit judge decide what to do with her, or the river. 2 men rode with him. Jacob, scar-faced, drunk most of the time but good with a knife. And Eli, young, stupid, fast. They didn't ask why they were riding. Just spat and mounted up. By the time the sun hit its peak, they found the first clue, a broken branch, low to the ground. Then a child's mitten, dropped in the grass. They weren't far. Back at the chapel, Clara felt it too. Not in sound. In the way the wind changed. In the way the man, Takaho, stood more upright now. Watched the ridge instead of the floor. That night, no one slept. Sam stood near the door with his stick. Ellie lay in Clara's arms, eyes wide open, staring at shadows. Takaho moved without noise, tightening the wrappings on his bow, feeling the string. Clara didn't speak. But in her chest, one thought circled like a hawk. They're coming. They left just before the sun touched the rim of the earth. Not with urgency. Not in panic. With silence. Takaho led the way, still wounded, but walking as if his bones remembered the land better than his muscles did. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The way he moved, deliberate, listening, said enough. Clara wrapped Ellie in a wool shawl and held her close to her chest. The girl had barely opened her eyes before falling back asleep, cheek pressed to her mother's collarbone. Sam walked behind them, slower than usual, dragging the wooden stick like a spear through the dust. He hadn't said a word since the night before. Just stared forward, jaw tight, as if words cost more than silence now. The land changed as they walked. The flat prairie rolled into low hills, then twisted into dry red gullies. Grass gave way to rock, and the trees, tall, black-limbed pines, began to lean inward, like they were watching. Clara's legs burned with each step. Her boots, soaked from yesterday's frost, rubbed raw against her heels. She didn't stop. Not once. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, or maybe that was just fear, taking new shape every hour. They followed a stream for a time, narrow, cold, trickling over rust-colored stones. Takaho knelt, placed one hand in the water, the other flat against the dirt beside it. He stood slowly, eyes scanning the tree line. Still nothing. But he was listening harder now. Ellie finally woke, lifting her head to the morning light. "Where are we?" she whispered. Clara didn't answer. Sam did. Somewhere safer than yesterday. By midday, the sun turned mean. The light cracked through the pine tops, leaving jagged shadows on the trail. Flies buzzed, dry wind shifted through branches that didn't sway. They stopped for a few moments in a hollow between 2 cliffs, just wide enough for 4 people to pass shoulder to shoulder. The stone here was darker, streaked with black veins and old lichen. That's where they saw it. Prints. Not old. Not weathered. Pressed deep into the dust and stone. Boots. 3 pairs. One with a dragging step. Clara crouched beside the tracks. Her fingers hovered above the print without touching it. She knew that limp. Ben. Takaho studied the tracks, then looked back the way they came. His jaw tensed. Not fear. Something older. Protective. Ellie clung to her mother's arm. Sam stepped in front of both of them, as if the stick in his hand could stop a bullet. No one said it aloud. But all 4 of them understood the same truth at the same time. They weren't alone anymore. Clara looked at the canyon ahead, narrow, steep, but defensible. If they made it through, they might buy time. Takaho nodded. Wordless agreement. He lifted Ellie onto his back. Sam took Clara's hand for the first time in days. Not out of fear, out of decision. They moved quickly now. Not running, but ready to. Behind them, the air shifted. The pine needles stopped whispering. The dust stirred near the trailhead. And then, not loudly, but sharp enough to pierce. A voice. Far, but not far enough. Male. Angry. Calling a name that didn't belong to this land anymore. Clara. They didn't turn back. Only forward. Into the canyon's mouth. Into stone and shadow and the promise of one more night alive. The canyon narrowed until it swallowed the sky. Walls rose on either side, steep, cracked, bleeding rust onto the path below. Pines gave way to rock, and the trail became a jagged scar carved by centuries of wind. The only sounds were footfalls, breath, and the occasional scatter of loose stone. Takaho moved faster now. His wound still bled, but he walked like someone who had made peace with pain. Ellie clung to his back, arms looped around his neck, half asleep. Sam stayed close to Clara, watching every bend in the stone ahead. The trail curved sharply left, then dipped into shadow. A perfect place for rest. Or an ambush. Takaho raised his hand. They stopped. The silence pressed in. Clara lowered herself to one knee beside a stone ledge. Her hand reached for the satchel, not for herbs, but for the old iron pistol her husband once kept hidden under the bed. She'd buried it deep, wrapped in cloth. Now it felt cold in her hands. Behind them, hooves. Then voices. Shouted. Rough. Echoing off stone. They didn't have time to run. Takaho set Ellie down. Whispered something in a language none of them knew. She nodded. Sam pulled her behind a rock. Then he stood up, in front of them. Takaho was already moving. A blur of limbs and shadow. He climbed the rock wall like it was a memory, positioned himself 10 feet above the path, bow drawn. Clara stayed low. Her heart beat against her teeth. She gripped the pistol like it might disappear. Then, boots. The first man came around the bend, Eli, the younger one. Smiling like he'd already won. He never saw the arrow. It hit him clean through the shoulder. He spun, screamed, fell. The second, Jacob, ducked low, fired his rifle wildly. The bullet ricocheted off the wall near Clara's head. She didn't think. She rose. Aimed. Fired. The shot went wide, but it stopped them. Takaho leapt from the ledge, knife in hand, landed like stone cracking. He moved fast. Faster than the bleeding should have allowed. A slash across Jacob's arm. Another to the leg. Ben appeared last. He saw everything. The boy. The girl. Clara. The stranger. And he didn't hesitate. He raised his revolver and fired. Takaho twisted, the bullet grazed his side. Blood bloomed across his ribs. Sam screamed. Clara didn't. She aimed again. And fired. This time, she didn't miss. The bullet caught Ben in the leg. He went down hard, cursing, teeth bared. But he didn't let go of the gun. Takaho reached him first, pressed the blade to his throat, and stopped. He looked at Clara, waiting. She stepped forward, took the revolver from Ben's hand, threw it into the ravine. "You follow us again," she said, voice low, steady, "and I swear to every god that's ever walked this canyon, I won't stop him next time." Ben didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. Hatred, confusion, and fear. They left him there. Eli crawling in the dirt. Jacob bleeding into the dust. Ben gasping through broken teeth. No more bullets. No more chasing. Not today. They moved on, deeper into the rocks. Takaho stumbled once. Clara caught him. He didn't thank her. He just looked down at her hand on his arm. Then forward. Because night was coming. And Red Canyon was still ahead. They reached the canyon just before the sun let go of the ridge. It opened slowly, not like a door, but like a memory. The rocks softened in color. From iron to amber. From fear to stillness. The trail narrowed one last time, then unfolded into a wide hollow wrapped in stone. No houses. No fences. Just the remnants of something old, low walls swallowed by sand, beams half collapsed, a broken wagon wheel leaning against a boulder like it had been waiting. This place wasn't marked on any map. But Takaho knew it. He walked ahead, slower now. Blood still soaked his side, but he didn't flinch. He reached the center of the hollow, looked up at the cliff face, then down at the cracked ground. And nodded. Clara helped Ellie down from her back. The girl blinked at the sky, then pointed. "There's pink in the rocks," she said. "Sunset," Sam answered quietly. "That's what it does to everything." They unpacked slowly. Not with urgency this time. With relief. Takaho found a dry spot near a wall and collapsed onto it, his back against the stone. He exhaled, long, low, like he'd been holding his breath for days. Clara sat across from him. Not close. But not far either. Sam explored the edge of the hollow, kicking at dust, finding a stick that looked like a sword. Ellie gathered pebbles and lined them in a spiral on the ground, humming a tune she must have carried from a dream. The fire they built was small. Not for cooking, they had little left to cook, but for warmth. Takaho didn't speak. He watched the flames dance, then glanced at Sam. The boy caught him looking. And smiled. Not wide. Just enough. Takaho nodded once. And Sam, after a long pause, nodded back. Clara wrapped her arms around her knees. Her hands were filthy. Her hair tangled. Her dress torn at the hem. But for the first time in days, her shoulders didn't shake. Her body knew something she hadn't said out loud yet. They were safe. For now. Night settled in gently. No screams. No footsteps. No howling wind. Just four people, still breathing. Still together. And stars above them, endless, uncaring, and finally quiet. The morning began too still. No wind. No birds. Not even the dry rattle of dust across stone. Just breath and silence and that strange, tight feeling behind the ribs, like something had stepped into the hollow without making a sound. Takaho was already awake. He stood near the ridge, eyes on the canyon mouth. Bow in hand. No arrows yet. But ready. Clara joined him without speaking. Her hand still held the warmth of sleeping children. But her spine was straight. Her eyes clear. He looked at her. She nodded. Behind them, Sam stirred. Ellie sat up and rubbed her eyes. Then, hooves. Far at first. Then closer. Stone broke beneath weight. Dust lifted at the canyon's edge. 3 riders. Ben was first. Still limping. His face darker than before, jaw set like stone. Behind him, Jacob with a bandage at the shoulder, and a third man they didn't know, younger, eye scanning like a coyote hungry for anything. Ben dismounted. Slowly. Not with caution, with ownership. Like the land owed him this. "Clara," he called. Voice raw. "You've made it far. I'll give you that." No answer. He stepped closer. "You shot me," he said. Still, no reply. He gestured to the children. "They come with me. You can go wherever the hell you want. You don't get to take them." Clara moved forward. Just a step. But enough. "They're not yours," she said. Ben laughed. Dry. Joyless. Their blood. That's what matters. Takaho raised his bow, not yet drawn. Ben looked at him, finally. Really looked. "And who the hell are you?" "Her new husband?" "Her spell?" "Her bodyguard." Silence. Then Clara answered. "Here's the reason we're still alive." Ben's hand went to his belt. The gun was still there. But this time, she moved first. Clara reached down, picked up the old pistol she'd kept wrapped in cloth all night. It felt heavier now. But real. She cocked it. Raised it. The children stood behind her. Takaho drew his bow, fast, clean, silent. Ben froze. "I'm not going back," she said. "Not with you. Not with anyone. You had your chance to protect them when their father died. You let them be hunted." Her voice didn't tremble. "We won't run anymore." For a moment, no one moved. Then the third man, the stranger, shifted in his saddle. That was enough. Takaho fired. Arrow in the dirt, inches from the horse's hoof. The animal reared. Jacob grabbed the reins. Swore. Nearly fell. Ben hesitated. Just long enough. Clara stepped closer. "This is your last warning." And he saw it. Finally. This wasn't the girl who'd married his brother. Not the quiet wife. Not the herbalist in the back garden. This was someone else now. Someone born in blood, in stone, in firelight. He turned. Didn't speak. Didn't shoot. Just walked. The others followed. And the canyon swallowed them. The fire had died to embers. Gray smoke rose slow and soft into the morning sky, curling between the rocks, drifting into the high air like it carried something holy. Clara sat with her knees drawn to her chest, wrapped in a worn blanket. Her hand smelled like smoke, pine, and dried blood. The pistol lay beside her on the ground, unloaded, cleaned. Silent. Ellie leaned against her side, still half asleep. Her hair tangled, lips chapped, but cheeks warm with sleep. Sam crouched near the edge of the ridge, carving something into the dirt with a stick. He didn't say what it was. No one asked. Takaho stood alone near the canyon wall, facing the wind. His bow was slung across his back, arrows tucked away. His side still bled slowly beneath the wrappings. But he stood tall, like the stone around them had become part of his spine. He didn't turn when Clara approached. She stopped beside him. For a long while, neither spoke. Below them, the trail was empty. No riders. No dust. Just sun creeping over the rocks and into the hollow. "It's quiet," Clara said finally. Takaho nodded once. The quiet wasn't just silence. It was something else now. Space. Time. Breath. Sam called from behind them, "Mama." She made a lizard family. He pointed to Ellie, who had built a tiny stone house for a pair of insects that looked vaguely reptilian. She grinned, proud. Clara smiled. And this time, it didn't feel stolen. She sat down beside the fire pit, helped Ellie shape a new roof out of flat stones. Sam joined, handed her a dry twig for the doorway. No one asked what would happen tomorrow. No one said how long they'd stay. It didn't matter. They had water, dry wood, shelter from the wind. The trail behind them was broken, and the land ahead still wide. Takaho knelt near the fire, picked up a stone Ellie had left, turned it over in his palm. He didn't speak. But then he smiled, small, real, tired. And Clara saw it. That this, here, was enough. Not forever. But for now. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in what felt like years, she slept.